We're back to the Catholic Challenge. I'm your host, Luke Lancaster, and continuing to develop these different points for evidence for Christianity, the different arguments for build a cohesive case for why you should be Catholic. So we've covered now arguments for the existence of God and the existence of the soul. Now we're going to get into the existence of Jesus Christ. Catholicism states that Jesus was God, but a lot of people don't even think that Jesus existed. And so we got to start there. Like, historically, did Jesus Christ exist? So I'll ask that question to you, Alden. Why do you think that Jesus Christ existed?
Yeah, so I definitely believe that Jesus Christ existed, and there's a lot of historical evidence for that. First, Cornelius Tacitus, considered to be one of the greatest historians of Rome, speaks about Jesus. And Tacitus said that when Rome was lit on fire, Nero attempted to blame it on, quote, the persons commonly called Christians who were hated for their enormities. Christus, the founder, and the name was put to death by Pontius Pilate, procurator of Judah in the reign of Tiberius, end quote.
Yeah.
So he's a
one.
big historian that obviously speaks about Jesus.
Yeah, I think that was written at about like 117 AD, that quote there from Tacitus. So the fact that a Roman historian says very clearly that the founder of Christianity was Christus, which is basically a misspelling of the name Christ, Jesus Christ. Of course, in Latin, you oftentimes use US at the end of names, so Christus. But that's, the founder of Jesus. He doesn't debate whether or not Jesus exists or not. So, yeah, that's a good point that Jesus existed.
Another is Lucian. Lucian was a Greek satirist that loved to make fun of the Christians. In the 2nd century, around 170 AD, he referred to Christ when he wrote, quote, the Christians you know worship a man to this day, the distinguished personage who introduced their novel rites and was crucified on that account. They worship the crucified sage that live after his laws, end quote.
Yeah. So Lucian, he makes fun of Christians. So he is not a Christian, right? So this can't be a claim of bias. They're saying, well, like, he believes that Jesus existed because he just, he was a Christian. No, like, he's not even a Christian, but he doesn't say that Jesus didn't exist. He doesn't use that as an argument against Christianity. He fully affirms that Jesus exists. So if anybody today claims that Jesus is just a myth, unfortunately they'd have to really brush aside a lot of these different historical sources, Tacitus, Lucian, or a bunch of others. You have any other ones?
Yeah, I have one more. Well, there are many more, but I'll just list one more.
Mm-hmm.
Saint Justin Martyr wrote around 150 AD to the Roman Emperor Antonius Pius, and referred him to Pontius Pilate's report of Jesus. So the Emperor Antonius Pius didn't believe that Jesus was a real person, but St. Justin Martyr referred him to the writings of Pontius Pilate.
Yeah, I think that's a really huge point for the existence of Jesus. The fact that a Christian apologist, someone who's trying to defend Christianity, St. Justin Martyr, writes to the emperor and just says, hey, look up in the records. It's in the records. 150 AD. You can just say, just look them up in the Roman records. Look up under your different governors. Find the governor named Pontius Pilate, and you'll see the people that he executed, and you'll find Jesus Christ. So the fact that this was utilized as an argument in the 2nd century, 150 AD, suggests that Jesus was in fact a historical person. So yeah, that's a good one. So we covered 3 of those there, Tacitus, Lucian, and Justin Martyr. Many others as well, Marabar and Serapion, Thales, a bunch of other ones. So yeah, that's a good point there. So Jesus definitely existed. Covered that. Now what about the Bible? The Bible, some people say it's just a myth. Some say it's just fairy tales. We see on the screen there of this picture that says, a first book of fairy tales. Lots of people think that the Bible is just a bunch of fairy tales. So, Candelaria, I'll ask you that one. Why do you believe that the Bible provides actual history that the Christian message is true.
Right. So back in the Old Testament even, there's historical records and stuff in archaeology that match up to stuff in the Old Testament in the Bible. So one of those is the ancient Merneptah stele. It refers to the nation of Israel in hieroglyphics around 1209 BC. So in the stele, Pharaoh Merneptah's victory against Israel is described. So this would mean that Israel was an established nation before that, corroborating the biblical text. So that kind of shows that even then, Israel was already an established nation.
Yeah, some people think that Israel was not an established nation. They'll say that the Bible is a bunch of myths, and so Israel couldn't possibly have existed back then. Maybe they existed, maybe in the 700s or something like that. But the fact that the Merneptah stela has been found and suggests that way back 1209 BC, that's automatically indicates, okay, the book of Exodus in the Bible talks about the nation of Israel leaving Egypt. So that indicates that was probably a truthful story, that there was in fact a nation known as Israel. So that's something just written in the earth that provides evidence for the biblical text, that the biblical text wasn't just a myth. What about any other points that kind of corroborate archaeology and the Bible?
Yes, so another one is the Tel Dan inscription. And it's an inscription dated to the late 800s BC, and it was discovered, and it refers to the biblical King David. So in the inscription, on an Aramean king refers to the killing of various people, and one of which is the king from the house of David. So the Davidic dynasty described throughout the Bible was known throughout the ancient Near East. So another thing from 800s BC is talking about King David and the house of David. So even from then, so we know that these are real people because it was described by other nations,
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a phenomenal point there, because the Bible consistently talks about the lineage of King David. The Davidic dynasty. You read through 1 Kings, 2 Kings, 1 Chronicles, 2 Chronicles, throughout the Psalms referencing David, throughout the Bible. Like, King David was the most famous king of Israel. And the fact that somebody else that's very ancient refers to the Davidic king, to the house of David, that there was a lineage of kings going back to David, way back in the 800s BC, would automatically make us say, all right, the Bible isn't just making that up. There's something legitimate there that non-Jews knew about. So that's a good point there.
Yeah. Another one would be, so according to 2 Kings 20:20 and 2 Chronicles 32:30, the Davidic king Hezekiah commissioned a tunnel to be built to prepare for a time of siege in the future from an enemy. And so the cool thing about this one is this tunnel still exists today, and you can see it. An inscription in Hebrew has been found on it. So the inscription is dated to the 8th century BC, which happens to be the time period of King Hezekiah. So we have literal proof that King Hezekiah did exist and did make this tunnel that we can even see today. So I love that one. That was a very interesting one.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I wish I had another picture of the actual tunnel. But basically, if you read the Bible, read 2 Kings, if you read 2 Chronicles, where it talks about King Hezekiah preparing the city for just in case if somebody comes and tries to wage war against Jerusalem. He tries to burrow a tunnel underneath the city over to a spring. That way, in case somebody comes and tries to fight against them and encircle them, they won't be just stranded without water. They'll have water connected through this tunnel. So, they won't starve, they won't have a drought or anything like that. They'll have still a water source there. And that wasn't a myth. We found it in the earth. We found the tunnel. We found the inscription. So I think that's a huge one there. And there's numerous other ones as well throughout archaeology. If you, the listener, want to learn more, you can go to stpeterinstitute.com, stpeterinstitute.com. We can learn more about the various instances where archaeology corroborates the biblical evidence. All right, so the Bible isn't talking about myths. it is in fact talking about literal history. It's written in the earth. What about the Gospels, though? The Gospels claim different things about Jesus that makes a lot of people say, there's no way that the Gospels could really be telling history. The Gospels talk about Jesus healing diseases, which, come on, we're scientific people. We don't believe in miracles or anything like that. So, of course, being sarcastic there. I mean, so how do we counter that? What do we say to people who say that the Gospels aren't history, that they're not reliable accounts of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection? So I'll ask that question to you, Anna.
Yes, so I believe that the Gospels are trustworthy, and they're not just some random structure of text. They actually fit into the genre of Greco-Roman biography. And this is a type of genre that well-known people of the olden days, they would have their life story accounted in this format. And we know that it fits into this genre because it's about 10,000 to 20,000 words in length. And it outlines Jesus' bloodline, so we see his ancestors, and it focuses on his public ministry, so his miracles that he did and stuff. So any great works that a well-known figure would do would be accounted for. And they're not necessarily chronological, not like this happened first, this happened second. More they categorize different things. And yeah.
Yeah, you just went through a bunch of points there, and I think that's huge there. So ancient Greco-Roman biography. So Greco meaning Greece, Roman meaning Rome. Greco-Roman biography, a bios, whereby you list the life of a particular famous individual. All right, and so the Gospels are fitting into that category that they're describing the life and death of Jesus Christ. And I think that was a key point there of how typically Greco-Roman biographies focused on the life, the public life of the individual. And this would make a huge amount of sense why the Gospels, they mainly focus on 3 years of Jesus' life, and that's their main focus. The 3 years where he was publicly ministering, what everybody knew him for. Right? So where he was being described as saying a parable, when he was teaching large crowds of people, or if he was healing somebody, healing a paralytic, healing somebody with a hand disease. That's what the Gospels will focus on. So actually, if you look at the screen there, you can see the massive chunks of the Gospels are doing just what Greco-Roman biographies would do. Right? Matthew chapter 3 all the way to chapter 25. That's well over 90% of the Gospel is basically just emphasizing the public ministry of Jesus. Or Mark's Gospels, chapters 1 through 13. Luke's Gospel, chapters 3 all the way to 21. Right, Luke's Gospel ends at chapter 24, so that's most of it. Same thing with John's Gospel, where he's just focusing chapters 1 through 12 on the public ministry. That's what Greco-Roman biographies would do. And so if the Gospels are trying to portray themselves as historical biographies, then that would lead us to believe that they were in fact giving reliable testimony about Jesus Christ, about their biography of this public figure named Jesus. So they're trying to be historical at least. And then, I love that point, the length. The fact that it fits within the general period that an ancient Greco-Roman biography would be. That the biographies would be typically 10,000 to 20,000 words. That's exactly what all four Gospels fit into. So the length, check it there. The chronology. I liked your point about the pedigree, the fact that it goes over the genealogy of Jesus. Sometimes Greco-Roman biographies will go over that, and that's what Luke's Gospel and Matthew's Gospel do. They try to say, like, Jesus Christ was born from who? Joseph, and then going all the way up to King David, or going even farther back up to Abraham, all these famous figures throughout Israel's history, which we've already seen were historical people, right? That corroborates with the archaeology. So we see there reliable testimony about Jesus Christ. We're going to dig a little more into this topic after our break, so I'll see you, the listener, in just a moment.